The second part of exercises is about the screen of inner visions and mental action. Polar bear. Lev Tolstoy, in his unfinished memoirs, told about the game invented by his brother Nikolenko. It was in the game conditions to stand in a corner and not think about the polar bear. He writes, I remember how I was standing in the corner and tried, but I could not help thinking about the polar bear. Good material for mental action, inner vision and imagination training. I say polar bear. What do you see on your inner screen? Yes, it. A polar bear. In our memory, many words and verbal combinations are firmly connected with their visual images. Think about a polar bear, I ask you, and it is easy for you to comply with the request, because the words about the polar bear, here it goes again, immediately echoed in your imagination as a visual image. And if I ask, do not think about a polar bear. Don't you dare to see the polar bear. Will you be able to comply with my request? Hardly. The polar bear appears in your vision as soon as I pronounce these words. How to get rid of a polar bear? The only way is to think about something else. About a black pooch, for example. Do not think about a polar bear, I say, and at this very moment you force yourself to think about a black pooch, and it instantly appears on your inner screen. And it will push the bear out if it managed to get there. Remember this rule. In order not to think about a polar bear, you have to think about a black pooch. This means that the inner vision can appear not only from the word we have heard, but also from the thought that we consciously evoke in ourselves. After all, thoughts are also words, only unspoken. We are now talking about the kind of thought which is called mental speech. The word is a lure for a vision. Any word? A river. What did you see? Everyone saw different things, or even didn't see anything. I will say more definitely, Nile. Everyone saw the Nile, although there may not be clarity in the visions. I will say downright specifically, the Nile riverside near the pyramids. This picture turned out to be much easier to see than the two previous ones. The more specific speech and words are, the brighter the vision is. Metaphors. There is an abyss of space in every word, wrote Gogol. Every word is immense, like a poet. Fading. What did you see on your inner screen? I saw the night sky. The horizon gets brighter. Morning is coming. The stars are fading. I saw the evening street, the illuminated windows, all multicolored, fading one by one. I saw a wounded pilot. He crawls through the snow, breathing heavily. Stops more and more often, cannot move. His strength is fading. I saw a girl. She is waiting for someone in the park near the cinema. There are people, meetings, joyful exclamations around her, and she is alone. The bell invites to the cinema show. The alley becomes empty. Only a girl. Her eyes. Hopes are fading. The metaphor in this exercise is a reason for improving associative thinking, and thus for the fantasy development. Many different pictures might appear in the imagination from the metaphorical word lure, such, for example, as boiling, a seething waterfall, water boils, harvesting, work is in full swing, an ardent speech at a rally, anger boils, etc. Listen to a word. Words that we have to the most important one, they become a habit, shabby like an apparel. Some words are revealed when you get to their original meaning, to guessing how it was invented. So the word captivating will revive in consciousness again, turn from a cliché into a fresh vision, as soon as you guess its origin from the word captivity. When you understand that to be taken captive by you means taken by you as a prisoner, and it is no longer necessary to engage in further etymological research because the word captivating was revealed in a living image. The word became replete. Replete, revealing the figurative meaning of this word, revive the whole phrase in your imagination. The word has become replete. Such tasks by no means duplicate the scenic speech subject. They seem to bridge the gap between the speech and mastery of the actor. From time to time, it is useful to focus the student's attention on a word or phrase. Any figurative turn of speech is fraught with the lessons of imagination. Off my hands. Did you say this about the exam? How would you say if you yourself, for the first time, now came up with this turn of speech? After all, these words were invented for the first time once. Maybe they rang even before Griboyedov, who said through Famusov's lips, "Signed, so off my shoulders." Just imagine a heavy, tiresome load, a freight on your shoulders that you can't wait to throw off. And when you did it, how tired shoulders squared. Visible talking. We see everything that we are told about, but we are not always aware of these visions, or we realize them fragmentarily with rare shreds of pictures. One must train the continuity of visions. Cultivate such a habit. When listening to a story, try to see continuously everything you are listening to. The tenacity of the inner vision should be the same as that of football fans when they hear the excited voice of the radio commentator. Made-up language. Take any made-up, artificial, funny language derived from your own, like gibberish. It should contain grammar, syntax, and lexis that resemble the natural language. While listening to or reading a phrase in such language, sort out the meaning. What happened? What event? Are there any inner visions? Yes, an amazing thing. Words do not mean anything. There are no such words, but visions appear. This is a fantasy development exercise. Mental speech. Recreate this morning the whole chain of small episodes from the minute you left the house. You need to see the whole way in your imagination, step by step. What did you look at on the way? What did you think about? What did you do? Try to see all the details in their then existing sequence, and at the same time to strengthen the visions, mutter quietly. Came out of the front door. What was the morning like? Grayish. Looked at the sky. The clouds are as much a smoke blue as a dove's wing. And then I thought about doves. There are always a lot of them at the corner of the street. They walk around, wait for the old ladies who feed them with grains. I mutter and I see it all myself. Now the whole crossroad is dug up. Huge pipes are lying on the ground. The pigeons have redislocated somewhere. I mutter, see, and I also walk. Now I am mentally crossing the street. I glanced mechanically to the left to see whether a tram is moving there. Mental speech will subsequently help in acting sessions to proceed to an internal monologue, to mental and speech action. It will aid in thinking at the moment of the action as the character portrayed would think. Mental speech training is the beginning of practicing mental and speech actions. Recall the most interesting event in your life over the past summer. Recall the most important event that roused interest in you from yesterday's newspaper. What were you thinking when you read it? What have you seen? Recall the most important event of yesterday for you. In every day, among many small episodes, you can find the most important one determining your future life at least a little. Which episodes did this event come from? Recall an episode from the last film you have watched. One single episode, but in all the very smallest details. And most importantly, in the same logic and consecution of action as it was in the film. Training logic and consecution of the mental speech is working on getting closer to logic and consecution of feelings. Mental speech can be used in many exercises, wherever inversions and actions with imaginary objects, dummies, are practiced. Note that mental speech is only a technical device that does not replace a living thought, but supports its emergence. Mental strolls. The students are in a semicircle. Let's take a stroll. Recollect Avenue A. We go from building B on the left side of Avenue A. Memorize what you see, house by house, without missing a thing. Did everyone reach the street C? First, on the right, describe your trip. Others, check the picture on your internal screens. Correct your friend. Supplement his or her description with the details they missed. Such mental strolls that train visual memory and the continuity of inner visions nurture observation skills and can be a part of individual home training. Let's stroll from Cathedral D to Palace E. You have heard my words, and 2 or 3 images instantly flashed on the screen of your inner vision. The golden dome of D, some trees of the garden, the latticed gates of Palace E. No, one should not fly, but walk. Learn to control the wings of your imagination. Where shall we start our stroll from? From a park? Walk all the way slowly, thoroughly. Along the park, past the car rows, the windows of the former cafe across the square, looking at Cathedral D, its columns, the platform from which tourists are delighted with the city, at the upper lantern where it is not allowed to walk now, the sparkling dome, along the yellow face of this house, looking at the trees in the garden, crossing a boulevard, past old houses, a fountain. Where are we headed now? Along Avenue A, or the river to the monument, or across the bridge to the island, or to the beaches? The best mental strolls are along familiar routes. A route is selected. The students walk sitting on their seats, first in absolute silence, so as not to frighten off the visions. Complicating the task, the teacher joins the exercise in. My voice will disturb you. Try not to interrupt the chain of visions by listening to me. Continuing your stroll, answer me as if I were walking there next to you. A question to one of the students. Where are you and me now? Which place have we reached? Let's stop and view this house. As you look at the house, describe it to me. To another. Look to the right, to the other side of the avenue. What is there? And where are you now? Got by the bookstore? Ahead, At the corner of Street F, there is a newsstand. Remember it? Take a look, please, if there is latest issue of the theater magazine. Have you approached the cinema? What film is showing? Have you seen it? No. See when the next show is. Great. Go to the ticket office and buy a ticket. From the very beginning, it is necessary to offer such mental speech so that it aids the visions. What is the hardest part of the exercise? To keep hold of a vision. It appears relatively easy, but it is more difficult to keep it on the internal screen. Mental speech will help you doing this. At first, it seemed to be a completely simple and easy exercise. It is so easy that you don't need to do it. Do not all people have such dreams? Wishing and imagining anything? Why train? That is why. To cultivate the skill of volitional continuity of internal visions upon a fictional topic. The continuity of consecutive visions, this must be trained. What is the skill for? Stanislavski said that an artist being on the stage during an action at every moment must see either external given circumstances created by the director and the designer, the things that happen at this moment outside the actor on the stage, or what happens in actor's imagination, internal visions that illustrate the given circumstances of the role's life. From all these moments, writes Stanislavski, a continuous, endless string of inner and outer moments of visions, a kind of film reel, is formed outside and inside us. While artistic endeavor lasts, it stretches forth non-stop, reflecting the illustrated given circumstances of the role on the screen of our inner vision. Walk mentally along the park's alleys. Practice switching visions. Follow the avenue to the first corner, to a little street. Walk slowly without missing anything. Now shift your visions to another route, to the familiar forest road near your summer cottage. Walk along it a little and again the avenue, up to a bigger street, and again the forest road. Mentally walk around this room, live in it. Pay such mental visits to houses you know. Go to theaters, cinemas. Walk through familiar museum halls. Just don't miss a single link in the chain of consecutive memories. Do not fly inside high-speed elevators, but walk upstairs step by step. A film reel of a day lived. Individual home training. Going to bed and putting out the light, train yourself to mentally review the whole life of each day that has passed, while trying to detail your memories to the ultimate limit. And Stanislavski clarifies to what extent it is required to detail the memories. In case, for example, you recall how you dined today, then you need to recollect everything you ate and in what order, the taste of everything eaten, all the dishware and its general arrangement on the table, thoughts and inner feelings caused by lunchtime conversation. Such detailed elaboration is essential for any recollection. We must try to internally see and somewhat live again the whole sequence of individual actions that make up a period of life. It is clear that you cannot recall the whole day this way. There is not enough time. Let it be recalled a little, but in points of detail. During such training, it is useful to slowly look through the rooms where you got around and, recalling individual things in them, mentally use them as it would be in reality. This habit, as Stanislavski said, must be mastered with long, systematic work. For now, we do not need to create a film reel of the role's illustrated subtext, but in preparation for that, we will start creating a film reel of the day we have lived. The stages are as follows. First, starting from a certain moment, we step back. That is, we recollect what we were doing a minute earlier. Then, where we were and what we did 5 minutes ago, half an hour ago, etc. Until the moment we woke up this morning. We will have a chain of consecutive visions from a given minute in the auditorium till the morning at home. Second, fixing this chain in the same order several times in a row. Third, doing the same in the opposite direction, starting from the moment of awakening until this very minute. After several repetitions, don't you feel that all these memories and the work you had done left some kind of trace in you, in the form of a mental, sensory, or other representation of the rather long life of your present day? It is twisted not only from the memories of individual actions and deeds that you have done in the near past, but also from a number of feelings, thoughts, sensations, and other things you have experienced. We are talking about daily memories of the common everyday events. They do not need to be fixed with the film reel, but a few times a week, so that the skill is constantly formed, create a fixed film reel of the day, such that it will be remembered for a long time. For this, choose days that contain something remarkable for you. Look through old film reels from time to time. Making them is a great way to prepare material for creativity. Listen to what Einstein wrote. I see with extraordinary sharpness what I am reading about or what comes into my head. Probably there is a combination of a very large store of visual impressions, sharp visual memory with a lot of training on daydreaming. When you make run in visual images what you think about or what you recall before your eyes, like a film reel. Even now, when I write, I essentially almost delineate with my hand kind of drawings of what passes in front of me as a continuous reel of visual images and events. These, first of all, sharp visual impressions, painfully, intensively ask for their reproduction. A motion picture. The students are in a semicircle. The teacher announces the name of the film which will be created by the whole group now. For example, bushfighters. The student, sitting first on the right, repeats the word bushfighters and names the next word which depicts the picture that presented itself to his or her imagination. Bushfighters, forest. The second student repeats what was said and adds his or her own word, developing the plot further on. Bushfighters, forest, dugout, shelter. This is how words shots accumulate. Each student repeats all the words used before and adds a new one. After the student, sitting on the far left, the chain of words shots is again taken by the first on the right, and the film continues. A group of 10 to 12 people can, with trained visual memory, bring a film to 100 shots. A word is like the name of a picture seen by your imagination. Therefore, first you need to see the picture, then name it with a word. Each time, with each repetition, whether you are talking or your partner is, run the film reel through over and over again. Switch from one vision to another, and only say the word when you see the picture. Beginners often memorize words mechanically. Sometimes they reflexively associate a word with the person who named it. Then The students recall word by word looking at their partners. In what order they sit. We must immediately warn students against such a mistake. The main thing in the exercise is a continuous logical consecution of shots events, the continuity of inner vision and voluntarily switching from one vision to another. Each student has their own story. Bushfighters, forest, dugout. With such beginning of the story, one student came along with a picture of bushfighters' night rest at their base, another the return of a group from a combat mission, the third, perhaps, a battle and lodgment of the enemy's position. Each new word, so to say, turns the plot, sometimes quite unexpectedly for everyone who listens. Therefore, at first, the students often protest. The word named by the next student does not fit, does not correspond with the overall picture that is created in everyone's imagination. Protest should not be accepted. The principle is applied here. The author's word is the law. Every word, even the most inconvenient one, must be justified. As well as in the future, the artist will need to find justification and explanation for every single author's word in the text of the play and for every event in its plot. The film reel runs in the circle. The shots of the film are being added. Let's stop for a minute. Describe how you see the dugout shot. Circular film reel. Exercise for individual training of inner vision, continuity and switching. Decide on a plot of the future short film and put together the film reel from several shots events. Now we need to glue the last frame with the first one to create a full circle of events. An example. First shot. A bear cub. You see a shaggy, big-headed cub standing in a glade, looking at everything around it with curiosity. Second shot. A hollow. You see a hollow in a thick trunk of a linden tree and bees that fly in and out of this hollow. Third shot. Delicious smell. You see how the bear sniffs, runs to the linden tree, climbs up its trunk. Fourth shot. Bees. You see how there are more and more of them, how they circle over the head of the bear cub, while it pushes its paw into the hollow. Fifth shot. A she-bear. You see how its shaggy mother is in a hurry to help the baby. Ready? Now run this reel continuously on your inner screen, shot by shot. Take your time. Look through the picture in more detail. Help yourself with mental speech. We got to the last frame, to the mother bear, and immediately again from the first frame to the second one, etc. It is necessary to reduce the recalling time for each shot gradually, quickly switching to the next one. It is useful to resume such exercise in memory after a few days. When the film reel becomes familiar and the memories will easily arise according to your demand, make two complications. Include one or two new shots in the middle of the event or in the latter part of it. Please note that they will not take root right away. Try to run the reel in reverse order. First the fifth shot, then the fourth, third, second, first, fifth again, etc. Have you seen what happens when the film is run in reverse? The diver then jumps out of water, flies up and lands on a tower. What will come out of your film? Double film reel. Exercise for vision switching training. The students are in a semicircle. The teacher is passing around two images, different in character and style. Let's say one of them is a color reproduction of Monet's painting Haystack, the other is a caricature bureaucrats cut off of the newspaper. Memorize both images. Imprint them firmly on the inner screen. Remember in every detail. Recall the first, second one. Take the images. Check if you remember everything well. Put aside the images. Recall the first, second one, the first, the second. Let's create 2 film reels based on these images. One is a lyrical study called Summer. Another one is a cartoon in the office. The students, training the instantaneous switching of visual memory from haystack to bureaucrats and from bureaucrats to haystack, create 2 film reels of visions on a rotating basis. If there are 10 students in the semicircle, film reels are created, for instance, in the following order. First student, sitting on the far right, field. Student 10, sitting on the far left, tables. Second, field, sunny day. Ninth, tables, telephones. Third, field, sunny day, haystack. Eighth, tables, telephones, performance schedules. Fourth, field, sunny day, haystack, coolness in the shade. Seventh, tables, telephones, performance schedules, fuss. Fifth, field, sunny day, haystack, coolness in the shade, birds. Sixth, tables, telephones, performance schedules, fuss, manager. Now the 2 film reels are crossed and diverge in different directions. Seventh, field, sunny day, haystack, coolness in the shade, birds, the noise of the leaves. Fifth, tables, etc. Each student, thus wise, memorizes both film reels at the same time and participates in the creation of either one or the other, depending on which side the next film reel is approaching from the right or from the left one. A group story. In the previous exercises, students were composing a story using only 1 or 2 words for each shot. Now you can expand the scope of the assignment. Compose using large phrases. At first glance, this seems to be a simpler case. Let's suppose the story began with a phrase uttered by the first of the students sitting in a semicircle. It was pouring rain. The second repeated this phrase and continued. It was pouring rain. The hunters got soaked to the skin in their hut. Third, it was pouring rain. The hunters got soaked to the skin in their hut. The night was falling and it was necessary to have time to reach the station. If the purpose of the exercise is limited to the development of the student's imagination, it is not at all difficult to continue this or any other story as long as the imagination works. But let's set a goal: to train the continuity of inner visions in this exercise, and everything will become much more complicated. All the time we will have to keep the elusive visions by volitional efforts and with the help of internal control monitor their continuity. This will be the physical goal of the exercise. It may seem that volitional efforts are not necessary. After all, verbal signals are already firmly connected with images. We say, "It was pouring rain," and at the same time we cannot but see pictures of rain on the inner screen. Of course we see, but we are often not aware of these images. The picture acquires visible features only if we focus our attention on the vision. It is pouring rain. Low dark clouds, darkness, slantwise lashes of water, and what else? Water hits the bare branches of trees, autumn probably, and tears of the remaining leaves. And what else? Water crumples dead grass, runs in a muddy stream along a forest path. Do not rush to continue the story. Do not invent. Do not force out a literary phrase. Primarily live in the atmosphere of the previous words. And when the picture becomes very precise, new details will appear by themselves, so bright you will want to name them. That way, the vision of rain led us to the forest to the hunters, and they to their thoughts about the road to the station. The story grows, but we will not forget to remind. Live in the atmosphere of fiction, in the atmosphere of story throughout the exercise. Here you have said your phrase, and your partners already continue to develop the story's plot. And you again and again, with each new repetition, force yourself to see all the images as soon as you hear the words of your partners. Force yourself to instantly switch from one image to another. Usually the story unfolds semicircle-wise. A complication is also possible. The teacher calls the name of any student and they continue the story. A chain of associations. Icebreaker. What do you see on your inner screens? 3 minutes of silence. Let the thought go loose. Untie it from the icebreaker whenever you want. Let's see where it will take you. A poll after 3 minutes. Who stopped at doing what? I pick mushrooms in the forest. It turns out that the student, thinking about the icebreaker, then moved on to the thought of a car. It brought him to a plant. Then he recalled the newsreel footage about the plant. In a moment, some other shots from a recent Indian film. The thought of India was replaced by circus memories, Indian artists. Then a circus building sprang. Next to it was the river embankment, where the trees were green, forest. Sometimes it is not so easy to reconstruct the whole chain of associations that led from icebreaker to mushrooms. But this is the main part of the exercise that trains the logic and consecution of inner visions. Go through the entire chain of associations from icebreaker to your last image. Try not to miss a single one. View all the images again in the same order on your inner screen. Once again, from start to finish. Association on the leash. This exercise trains associative thinking in a different way. Icebreaker. Have you seen the first image? Now do not untie your thought from it. Keep the thought tied to the word icebreaker. Invent a coherent story with this title. Discard extraneous thoughts. Think only of the icebreaker. After 3 minutes of silence, a poll. Of course, not everyone was equally able to think only about the icebreaker with full concentration in 3 minutes. But it is important for us how much the students know how to discard the unnecessary things. Not to think about the polar bear. How much they manage to prolong the time of continuous thought about one subject, and how much they become inured to consciously control the flow of their thoughts. Now each of you has your own visual story, which is called icebreaker. Repeat it in your imagination from start to finish. Build an unbroken chain of inner visions. Let the film run on your inner screen, in which one event shot is followed by another. Something will have to be further defined, and may be changed, to come up with the missing links of events. Turn off the film camera. Come up with the missing things. When you are ready, turn the camera on. Continue to view the chain of visions. There should be a continuous reel of shots events. When you get home, turn on your internal camera again and restore the entire sequence of shots events. Next lesson, we will check whether the film reel becomes tone or not. Videoscope. The students are in a circle. One after another, 5 different postcards or painting reproductions go from hand to hand. About every 10 seconds, the teacher knocks on the table. This is a signal for the student to give the neighbor on the right the postcard he or she has been looking at during those 10 seconds and receive another postcard from the neighbor on the left. When the postcards made 3 or 4 circles in that way, they are set aside. Now, let's fix all 5 pictures in our memory. Recall the first one. Who will tell what they remembered? Recall the second one. The stories of the students aided in burning all the pictures in their memory. Let's practice switching visions. At my command, you have to recall the picture and try to keep it on your inner screen until the next command. What should you do in order not to miss it from the screen? We need to think about it all the time and restore all the particulars in our memory, all the details, one or another. First, second. There is an interchange of pictures, primarily with long pauses to enable the student to hold the vanishing image, return it to the screen. Then the pauses become shorter more and more, and the interchange of pictures moves further and further from the sequential enumeration. Third, fifth, first, fourth, third, second. The student's eyes must be open. Just do not strain your eyes. By this you will not see vividly, but on the contrary, frighten off the vision. And remember that we are not pushing for hallucinations. We do not need color, sound, and stereoscopic vision that would be always present in front of your eyes, like mental patients have, obscuring the real world. No, everything that we see in reality remains as it is, our room and these windows and the piano. But in addition to what really visible is, a new visual image arises in the imagination. It is vaguer than the real one, unstable and tenuous. But if we think about it, our body lives in its atmosphere, lives under conditions of fiction. Our body, we ourselves, are thus ready to act and act in the fictitious given circumstances. Advanced videoscope. A more complex version of the previous exercise starts the same way, but when the cards passed 2 circles, the teacher unexpectedly adds 3 new cards to the 5 cards going, which the students did not suspect. When the cards go round 1 circle, all 8 are set aside. Further on, the exercise follows the previous description. Only 5 original postcards are memorized. Additional ones appear at the end of the exercise. Second, fifth, first, third additional, fourth, first additional. A mathematical problem. When you were solving mathematical problems at school with pools and pipes which water runs from, filling these damned insatiable pools, or problems with pedestrians who tirelessly walk towards each other and at some point certainly meet, the pools, pipes, and pedestrians with canes involuntarily appeared in your imagination, but you discarded unnecessary visions and plunged into the world of boring numbers. Today we will try to solve some mathematical problem without the help of mathematics. If you have learned to manage visions, to keep them on your inner screen, they will help you solve the problem. This one, for example. 3 fishermen found such objects thrown on the seashore after a shipwreck. 7 empty barrels, 7 more half filled with wine, and 7 barrels full of wine. How can they share what they found among three without touching the barrels or transferring the wine, so that everyone gets an equal number of barrels and an equal amount of wine? I will help your visions. Look, I put 7 matches with broken heads on the center of the table. These are empty barrels. On the left, I put 7 intact matches. These are full barrels. The 7 match halves on the right are barrels half full. Create the rest in your imagination. Imagine how fishermen walk around the matches barrels and try to share them. Who solved the problem? Whisper the answer to me. You did not meet the problem's situation, since your fishermen were engaged in transferring wine. Clearly, if half of the wine is transferred from each full barrel into each empty one, then the fisherman will get 7 barrels half full. But you must not transfer the wine. Let your fisherman still suffer. Right, the first and second fishermen got 2 empty barrels, 2 full and 3 half full. And the third fisherman, probably the oldest, bearded, got 3 empty, 3 full and 1 half full. This means that each got 7 barrels with 3.5 barrels of wine among them. If you still have mathematical problem books at home, practice in solving them with the help of vision. Of course, not every problem is good for that. Find those where you can imagine a complete picture of life. Determine the logic and consecution of actions in the event. Help yourself with mental speech. A logical problem. And here is a sample of the so-called logical problem, which is easily solved by a person with developed image thinking. A housewife had to cut meat, fish, and fruit. She had 2 clean double-sided mats and a dusty table at her disposal. She could not cut food on a dirty surface. Fold mats, wash them, and dust the table before the work is finished. The housewife solved this problem. Would you? Of course, it was easier for the housewife than it is for you now. All the objects were in front of her eyes. You will have to fantasize in your imagination about a dusty table. It would be more logical to wash it first, but for some reason it is impossible. 2 mats hanging on the back of the chair, 2 bags with meat and fish on the chair, and a basket with apples hung on a spike. Have you imagined? Now figure out the possible options. If you first put 1 mat, cut the meat on it, then the second time you won't be able to cut anything there. One side is covered in blood, the other in dust. It won't do. There is only 1 mat left, but we need to cut fish and apples. If the table was clean, everything would have worked out. Put the mat, split the fish, then turn the mat on the clean side and chop the apples. But there is the mat on the table. Here it is, all wet from cutting meat. If only it was clean. Then we could put the second mat on it. We are already close to the solution. Continue to act mentally further. Right, you must primarily put both mats and cut one thing on the top. Fish, for example. Then remove the upper mat and put it with the dirty side, scaly from fish, on the dusty table. And cut the meat on the lower mat. Then put the upper mat with the clean side up on this lower dirty mat and cut the apples. If the table is large enough and both unfolded mats can be placed on it, you do not need to put the fish mat on the meat one. Anyway, after splitting the fish, when you remove the upper mat and put it on the table with the dirty side, you will find 2 clean sides of 2 mats which you can cut meat and apples on. Einstein's problem. This mock problem of Einstein, like similar to it, can serve as a material for image thinking training. The Turkish merchant was looking for a companion. He was offered services by two candidates, smart and stupid. After long consideration, the merchant decided to prioritize the smart one. But how can one know which of them is smarter? The merchant came up with such a test. He brought both of them to a room without windows and mirrors. Then he opened a box and said, "Here are 5 feathers, 2 in red and 3 in black. I'm going to turn off the light now. Each of you will take 1 fez and wear it. As soon as I turn on the light again, you have to tell me which color the fez on your head is. Whoever guesses first will be my companion." And so it was done. As soon as the light came on, both contenders saw that the merchant had a red fez on his head. At the same moment, one of the candidates exclaimed. What did he exclaim? Well, go in threes to decide which one of you is a merchant and who are the candidates. Put imaginary 5 feathers in the box, 2 reds and 3 blacks. Go ahead. When the merchant turns on the light, close your eyes. When turns off, open. One important condition. You do not know which fez you are wearing, but when you open your eyes, you will see a red fez on the merchant's head and a black one on the head of your opponent. You cannot see the rest of the feathers, they are in the box, but recall what may remain there, and figure out which fez is on your head. Who will guess first? Black? Why? Because I said your opponent has a black one, and you are both opponents. No, imagine the whole picture and guess properly. Indeed, it is black. How did you guess? That's right, this is exactly the Einstein's answer. If I had a red fez on my head too, then my opponent would see 2 red feathers and immediately say, I have a black one. But he is silent, which means that I wear the black one. Journeys. The teacher gives a travel route to each of the students sitting in a semicircle. Antarctica, jungle, Black Sea coast, Himalayas. 3 minutes of silence. The students prepare their film reels by fantasizing about faraway places they have never been to. Then the stories begin. Description goes shot by shot. A few phrases shots and the teacher stops the student, gives word to the second one. The second starts, the teacher stops him after several phrases shots and gives word to the third one. Then again to the first student to continue. Then the fourth to begin with. The third is to continue. Again the first one to continue, and so on in any order. When the stories are over, they should consist of no more than 6 to 8 phrases shots. Several minutes are given to restore in memory the sequence of shots in each story. After that, any student must repeat any of the described journeys. The exercise is done correctly by the one who carefully listened to the stories of partners. Those who not only listened but also heard, and this is not the same thing. Who listened and saw, tried to see as precisely as possible, which means in fixing it in memory. Who was memorizing not only the words but also their visions. Thus, in this exercise, both the continuity of internal visions and switching with the help of developed dispersed attention are trained. Not mechanical memorization of words, but the image-bearing recollection of interchanging pictures and their distribution according to given shelves. Repeat. An assignment. Telling the same thing several times. An exercise from the repetitive actions series. Their purpose is to repeat without repeating. That is, to repeat so that each repetition is alive, not routinized and would be performed as if for the first time. Below are exercises based on external physical action, but for now let's try to start with internal action. Tell us what you were doing this morning. Woke up. The story must be stopped almost at once. The student's recollections of several actions are enough. How he or she got up, dressed, washed, then got to breakfast. Enough. Repeat your story. The repetition will be alive if the students again, as for the first time, turn to inner visions and their words are based on them. Repeat one more time. Each repetition automatizes the action. Words no longer rest upon visions, as it was the first time, and die down. As the phrase goes, words fell on the tongue muscles. By volitional efforts, you need to return the original visions. Try not to miss the slightest link in their continuous chain with each repetition of the story. When you are going to play a role on the stage, there will be no time to think about visions. Sometimes they will appear by themselves, sometimes they will not. As in life, when we are rarely aware of the living visions that lie beneath our words. However, preparing a role means recreating the entire living chain of visions that feed the word. Words without visions get routinized and die down. Visions cannot be routinized because they are living, moving, changing. If you correctly, several times, make smooth the continuous chain of visions simultaneously with the words being spoken, then there is a hope that the visions will be appearing reflexively, caused by the word. You will not always feel them, they will go into the subconscious, but from its depth they will aid the word. Learn to make visions smooth. It is useful after 2 or 3 days and then after 2 or 3 weeks to ask the student to recall the story. Repeat it. Returning to the story, one should deepen, enrich, make the vision more specific, strengthen their continuity. You can call mental speech in for help. Over time, it is necessary to complicate the task. To tell not short episodes but longer ones. Use not only life experience but also the acting fantasy. Tell us how you fought the bear. Didn't you have to? What if? Today, yesterday. An individual or group memory switching exercise. Yesterday, you were recalling your morning in the class. You tried to retrace in detail the uninterrupted consecution of all your actions. Where did you stop yesterday? You open the door, go out into the street, keep on recalling. Stop. Recall this morning in the same particular detail as yesterday's. From the very beginning. You opened your eyes. Go back to the memory of yesterday's morning. Where did you stop? Continue to recall today's morning. The main thing in the transitions from one recollection to another is to return as quickly as possible to that vision, to that thought which we were caught at by the switch, and to continue the recollection as consistently and unhurriedly as it went before. A new switch, and again one should return to the previous recollection. The teacher gives the commands yesterday and today, gradually reducing the time between them. However, the switch lever is not formed immediately and not all students master it equally quickly. A variety of switching exercises help to shape it. Therefore, from the very first days, you should not hope for quick switching from every student. Adequate time should be given for the student to recall, to keep the vision, to move on through the memory, and only then switch to another recollection. Why is it sometimes easy to recall the consecution of actions, and sometimes difficult? Because many of our daily actions are automatized. We mechanically go to the wash basin and brush our teeth, while at the same time we think about a dance lesson where it is imperative to master a complex move today. This means that you need to recall not only your movements, but also your thoughts. After all, they make the lines of our day as well. Events in a painting. A reproduction of a painting, a postcard or a photograph, let's pass them round. After it was in the hands of each student 2 or 3 times, it is put off. Recalling the reproduction, students should find out in a general conversation and determine the following: the content of the picture, its plot, factual storyline, the main event captured by the artist, individual human actions using which this event is made up and manifests itself, the characters of people, their biographies, and the change in these biographies under the influence of the event depicted. Putting a picture together. Today on the teacher's desk there are cut pieces of some kind of reproduction. Get a piece, each of you. Look into it. Guess what might be next to it. Now get together, familiarize yourself with what the partners have, and try to restore the full image team-wise. And what is happening on the inner screens of your vision? Linger. The students are in a semicircle. One of them sits facing his or her partners, examines the reproduction given to him or her, a postcard, photograph, then puts it aside and tells what is depicted on it. We must instill visions into the minds of our partners, inspire them with our visions, and for this we must ourselves clearly envision the details of the picture you are talking about. Once the story is over, the listeners must build a picture on the creative stage, with conditional partitions formed by chairs and screens indicate the location of objects, as well as populate the picture with people. Do not portray the poses of people, but try to leave their thoughts out. People in the picture are depicted at the moment of statics, motion stop. It is in your power to bring the false dream, to stop the moment, into life. Think as a result of which actions a person came to such a static pose. Which thought stopped him? Act out, live in these actions, come to this thought. The exercise combines the training of visual memory, internal visions with space orientation and musculomotor memory training. And then what? So, we stopped a moment. And then what? When did the action resume? Continue on the signal. What a sorrowful plot. When I ring the bell, instantly shift the action to a joyful end. How merry you are! On the bell, shift the action on a sad track. Linger on. Stop. 3 pictures. This version of the previous exercise is much more difficult. It also trains the mechanisms for switching the internal visual and auditory realms and requires trained dispersed attention. The students are in a semicircle, 3 separately facing the semicircle. They receive 3 different reproductions for examination. On the count of 20, they memorize the images and put the reproductions aside. Now they have to present the content of the pictures to the rest of the students. The teacher conducts. The first student begins his or her story. The teacher stops him or her after a while and includes the second student into telling the story. Then again the first, third, etc., in order or randomly. It is necessary to remind both the narrators and the listeners that at each switch they must restore on their internal screens that dynamic picture, that vision that was at the moment of switching on, and that in this way they should keep the continuity of visions and thoughts. Also, in 3 different corners of the room there is a vivification of paintings. The teacher conducts the first picture, third, second, first, and the students from team to team are engaged in building one or another picture. Only after all 3 pictures are built and vivificated and the narrators meticulously checked and approved them, does the teacher show the reproductions to everyone, and the students make the final corrections in their pictures. A well-known city. This is an exercise with continuation. It trains visual memory and imagination. From time to time it is contributed a few minutes from the training session throughout the first year of studying, and during these minutes the imagination of the students lives in the conditions of the same fiction. The teacher passes around a reproduction, photo, postcard, with some city view that is not familiar to the students. The reproduction passes from hand to hand, lingering with each student for a certain count, 10, 5, 3, and passes 1 or 2 rounds. Then the students tell what they saw. After a few days, the teacher asks the students to remember what the city looked like. After the story of one of the students and a short discussion when the others complete the story, the teacher passes the reproduction round for instant photography on the count of 1, 2, 3. The same is repeated for several more sessions. Every time the instant photo is taken, new details are captured that were not seen before. The order of the exercise is the same. First, remembering, seeing on the inner screen, then clarifying the inner vision during the story, then checking by photographing, noting something new, and finally remembering again, seeing on the inner screen to fix. During one of the sessions, when the general view of the city is already well known to the students, the teacher invites everyone to choose their own place in the common picture, whether it be part of the street, a separate house, an embankment, etc. In several sessions, the students fantasize over settling in their place. They settle there themselves or their friends. They make this section of the city as the object of their work, the remodeling or their strolling place. Then the need for a visual check of one's place naturally arises. Strive to ensure that you would have a memory not of a postcard but of a real living city. When you tell, you should not have a 2-dimensional memory, but a memory of 3D viewing, a sense of the living city perspective. At the penultimate session, after taking a picture, the teacher gives the students a task. Everyone must come up with their own logical conclusion to the exercise. The last session is the students' stories. Everyone has their own reasons for saying goodbye to the city. One moved to another place, the other finished building a house, etc. Going blindfolded. One must, closing their eyes, go across the room to their place and sit down. Do not hurry. Before we go, there is still a lot to be done. Examine your future path carefully. While your eyes are open, imagine that you are walking. See what your path should be like when mentally, but still with your eyes open, you have made all the way. That is, you saw how you go to a chair and sit down. Now do the same with your eyes closed. Mentally make all the way. How many mental steps did it take you? Open your eyes. Figure out if you calculated the steps correctly. Now close your eyes and go. Mentally shorten the distance. You need to have the feeling that you are moving in a well-known space. No, you don't have to count the steps. It is better to open your eyes for a moment to make sure you are in the place you thought you were. This is not a sports exercise. Do not strive to be the best, the fastest. This is not what we need. We are working on the conscious inner vision development. Therefore, the most important thing is, when you walk, try to see your path on the screen of your inner vision. After the confident performance of the exercise, when it is clear that the student does not act mechanically, counting the steps, but actively uses the internal vision, one can introduce complication. One or two obstacles along the straight line of the path are placed, chairs or tables, which must be bypassed and not touched. The labyrinth. Prepared by the previous exercise, the students can improve their skills of mental training in space with the help of this exercise. The labyrinth is constructed from chairs, making a complex, winding passage. It is necessary to go through it several times with open eyes, then eyes closed. Several students do the exercise at the same time. With open eyes, they walk slowly, memorizing all the turns in the labyrinth. They are driven by musculomotor memory connected to visual memory. You are memorizing the path not only with your eyesight. You memorize it with your whole body, every muscle that works at the moment of turning the body at the bends of the path. You understand, of course, that this is an exaggeration. You can't memorize the movements of all the muscles, and there is no need to. But you will definitely have at least a shadow of this general feeling, memorizing with your whole body. Do not hurry. Let your feelings and memories be as detailed as possible. Come back and start again. Go through each difficult turn again and again. It is necessary that the whole path remains in your memory, a chain of many consecutive movements. Now stand at the labyrinth entrance and, standing still, make all the way mentally, just as slowly and in detail as you just walked. Just as slowly and in detail. That's the whole point. By no means faster. Done. Now, standing still, mentally go through the whole way again, but with your eyes closed. Open your eyes, evaluate the path once again. Close your eyes and go boldly. Bumping into the damned chairs. Do not feel embarrassed. We are not at a sports competition. It is important for us to strengthen our inner vision. We stumbled upon a chair. Imagine mentally where you are. Ah, that's where I am. So the next chair is in that direction. After 2 days, you can repeat the exercise. Recall your path through the labyrinth. Closing your eyes, Resume the consecution of movements with all your body memory. Now go. No, you don't have to install chairs, that's not the point. Walk as if they stood in your way. Where are you? Where are you going? Why? Catacombs? Looking for some evidence? Routes. Let everyone outline a closed circuit route around the room. It can be in a circle or in a complex zigzag or whatever else. Investigate the route in action. Walk along it. See whose routes yours intersects with, whom you meet and where on the way. Everyone should decide on their own rhythm of walking along the route. Do not get infected with the rhythm of the neighbor. Try to close your eyes for a short time. Can you see those who pass by you with your inner vision? Open your eyes to check and close again. Can you see yourself in a certain place on your route? Open and close your eyes again and again. Can you hear the approach of a partner whose routes intersects with yours? Are you preparing to bypass him or her so as not to collide? Now, everyone, close your eyes and walk on your own routes. Don't lose your own rhythm. Where am I now? Who bypasses me? Hearing aids inner vision. Who is towards me? Whose steps are nearby? A compass. An exercise that develops space orientation skills using visual memory. First, you need to orient yourself in the room, fix in your memory the view of its four sides, conditionally south, east, north, west. Stand up in the center of the room. Close your eyes. Recall the south of the room. When you heard the word south in your memory, beyond your wish, for some reason the sea and cypresses and a distant cow recurred. And we will transfer the word south into other visions. It is within our power. South. Recall that wall where there are two windows, curtains, a bench with green legs, a screen in the corner. This is the south. And the north. No, we don't need ice floes and polar bears. Engage your screen of inner vision with the view of the room's north wall. Recall a piano, a chair in front of it, a ladder. There are two briefcases on it. This is the north. North. Open your eyes. Check if it's true. Temporary connections of the words south, north, east, and west with the view of the room's four walls have been created. Let's practice quick switching of internal visions. South. Does the view of the south wall recur easily? East, north, west, south. The training of switching visions, more precisely the entire complex of temporary connections, alternating randomly, is an important and independent part of this exercise. First, long pauses separate the name of one side from the other, so that the student pulls all the visions by volitional efforts. Then the pauses are shortened. You are now facing south. Without opening your eyes, turn to the east. Open your eyes, check if you turned right. Close your eyes. Turn your face to the north. Now, where is the west? And the south? Do you see everything on your screens? Where is the east? Open your eyes and check it out. A pinwheel. After digesting the previous exercise, you can play a pinwheel, which trains the switching of visions in connection with space orientation and vestibular sensation. The student, with his or her eyes closed, is in the center of the room and is whirled in different directions. Stop. Where is the south? Show me. And the east? Do you recall the wall's view? It must be remembered that the teacher's voice, if he or she sits in certain place, will certainly connect the student's mind with a definite side of the room. Therefore, before starting the exercise, the student must be warned that the teacher will walk around the room. Stop. What is in front of you? And where is the piano? And the windows? Open your eyes and check. Another pinwheel. Close your eyes, turn around a few times to confuse yourself, and find the exit from the room or the chair you were sitting on. Before you close your eyes, look around. Remember where you are and where the door is. Turn around with your eyes closed slowly at first. Turned around once, imagine visually where the door is. Open your eyes and check. Turn around 2 or 3 more times and check again. Now turn around quickly. 1 turn, check. A few turns. Without opening your eyes, go to the door. It didn't work? Start all over again. Where are you? Why are you walking towards the door with your eyes closed? Did the lights go out? Unfamiliar room? During this and other exercises, take the opportunity to practice the switching mechanisms. Think of a few different situations for yourself. Playing hide and seek with a friend, looking for a way out from the dungeon, night, war, the smoke gets in my eyes, house fire. Randomly switch internal visions from one situation to another without interrupting the action. Measuring tape. Look at the back of this chair. Close your eyes and recall the chair. Without opening your eyes, spread your arms to the width of the chair's back. Open your eyes and check. Look at the notebook on the table. Closing your eyes, show one by one several times the width of the table and the width of the notebook. Do the same thing with your eyes open. Again, with closed. It is not the eye estimation itself that is tested here. It is more important to fix in the mind an arbitrary way of coordinating between the visual image, internal vision, and musculomotor memory. 3 words. The assignment. The leading person of the session says a few words and everyone combines them into one harmonious picture, supporting it with fantasy. Words may be close in the intended event, for example, road, meeting, bus, may include in advance a hint of the expected complication of the event or an obstacle on the way to the goal. For example, book, phone call, taxi, or seem to be quite far from each other. Slide rule, piglet, lamp. What if those were the first 3 words from the film exercise? How to link them into one integrated event? Fantasize over it. The first shot. A pig farmer takes a 1-meter measuring tape from the table. Second shot. Takes a piglet, puts it on the scales and measures it. Third shot. An electric bulb suddenly flashes over the scales. The piglet gets scared, jumps off the scales. I have another film. The first shot. Scouts solemnly lined up at a summer camp. Second shot. A piglet is running and it breaks all the solemnity. The guys are trying to catch it. Third shot. The piglet runs onto the director's stoop, rushes there about and knocks over the director's favorite lamp. If the students have not yet started working on these studies, you can continue this exercise as a film or a group story, training your imagination. You can recall the 3 words in a month in the midst of the study-like work, and assign the task to everyone to prepare a study for these words. Living images. In exercises that develop visual memory and observation skills, we fantasize over what a few matches thrown on the table look like, what pictures are born in our imagination when we see stains on the wall or folds in the curtain. Now that you have already learned to master the inner vision, let's fantasize. What animal does this table look like? Try to fit the table into the natural forms of an animal more accurately. Why is it motionless? Where is it? What's around? What kind of bird does our respected head of the group look like? What movements, what wings flapping would be very suitable for him? What if this chair was alive? No, not a beast nor a bird, just a living chair. Tell me, how old is it? What is its character? What does it love or dream about? Inversions. Let's take any reproduction of a painting or a postcard and start training the imagination mechanism. This is a reproduction of Breakfast by Velázquez. An ordinary scene. Three are at the table. The old man is reflecting upon his own things. The boy raised a flask of wine. Both he and the other boy are looking at us cheerfully. Have you memorized the picture? Set it aside. Look closely into the picture on your inner screen, and now mentally invert the image. Do not hurry. First, reseat the boy on the right with the raised finger. Where is he looking now? What is on the table in front of him? Now reseat the old man. You will also have to move the glass. Can you clearly imagine how the picture reversed? Check it out on the reproduction. Such inversions of pictures and objects do not come easy immediately. Freedom of realization is a sign of good and confident control of your visions. Anti-world. You can find everywhere some materials for individual exercises on reversing visual perceptions, and that's for the imagination development. You are standing at the bus stop. Look at the opposite side of the street. Take a picture of a house. Turning away from it, reverse it in your imagination from left to right. The front door was on the left, now it is on the right. Next to it is a dairy store window, and the sign is reversed too. Then the gates. Has the bus arrived yet? Keep reversing the house. Now from bottom to top. The first floor will be the fourth, the second will be the third, etc. The dairy store at the top looks interesting, right? Well, let's place a lift there. You got on the bus. Find some material here for the inversions either. Swap passengers. Put the driver's cabin on the right. And where is your new location? To recall the face. Recalling a familiar person. To recall the face, movement, manners, gestures. Decide what you need this memory for. What are you looking for as confirmation? What character trait are you guessing? What movements and gestures of people in certain circumstances of their life can confirm your assumptions? Mentally put a familiar person in circumstances unusual for him or her and guess how he or she would act in them. Do not intellectualize, but imagine visually their actions. Do not limit your imagination. Send your friends to the jungles of Africa, to the North Pole, make them a traffic breaker, rescuer of the drowning, a general finally. How would their character manifest itself in such circumstances? In which actions? In the to recall the face exercise, such an unexpected but weighted task is also possible. Recall the person closest to you, your precious one. How well do you know him or her? What are his or her eyes, color, shape, brows, what mouth, and how does he or she rejoice at something, or grieve? No, this is not about external manifestations of feelings, but the inner impulses of your dear good person. What exactly makes them happy? What saddens? And why so? And why does something completely different make me sad and joyful? Isn't it strange? In short, you will soon be convinced that, oddly enough, you do not know much, very much in a person dear to you. Juozas Miltinis, a wonderful director and teacher, said about his students, "I don't teach them. Only nature can teach and create. I only wake their curiosity for cognition." Imaginary circle. We have already dealt with the real circle of perceptions, with our study room. Stanislavski also has the following tasks. The big circle of attention. I want to build a theater in the studio's courtyard and consider which buildings need to be demolished. It is necessary that the terrace that will be attached has a good view, choosing where to do it, trying to draw in imagination what the courtyard will look like with the planned construction. But here is another task, not with the real, but with an imaginary circle of attention. Try from memory to lay out a theater in the courtyard of your own or a friend's house, and a theater hall in someone else's house, and at the same time recall what kind of decoration is at the very bottom of the lamp or chandelier that hangs in this room. As we practiced the switching circles, we felt the area of our real perceptions in the room expand or contract. We can experience a similar sensation with imaginary circles. Think of a large yard you know well. Mentally replan it for an open-air theater with a stage under a canopy, with rows of benches behind the barrier. Don't forget the orchestra pit, the backstage area, the box office. Stop. Switch to the middle imaginary circle. Plan out a small concert hall with an open stage in our college dance hall. Didn't fit? Never mind. Let it be quite a small and homelike hall. We need to figure out which wall is more profitable to put a stage against. Stop. Return to the big circle. Continue building the theater in the yard from the place where you left off then. Continue planning the concert hall. Theater. Concert hall. Theater. Do you remember which chandelier hangs in our dance hall? Describe it. How did you decide? Leave it in its original place or move it? Mental actions. Proceeding with developing the ability to analyze an event in action. Let's turn to new tasks that will strengthen the skill of forming a logical and consecutive chain of simplest actions. Wipe the dust from all tables and things so that there is not a single speck of dust. Arrange things and furniture in perfect order, the old way, the new way, according to your taste, so that it is convenient for a business which room is intended for. Come in and say hello to everyone. Say goodbye to each individually and to everyone altogether and leave. Do all these exercises, however not in reality but mentally. To do this, mentally transfer the scene of action to some other room well known to you, whether it be your own room or your friends. What does it mean to perform an action mentally? There is no need to try to see yourself as if from the side. You need to imagine that you are performing this action consecutively from the first individual movement to the last. We must try to make the film reel of visions seem to go on incessantly in the imagination, although, of course, it will be interrupted. Not only the memory of visual perceptions works here, but first of all musculomotor memories, the memory of similar movements being made sometime in real life or in the imagination. The control from the teacher's side is problematic in such an exercise. Whether it is performed correctly, only the physical sense of truth of the students themselves marks it. How have I been doing this? Continue mentally any of those tasks that you have already done in reality, not missing a single link in the chain of visions, not a single mental movement. Repeat mentally. How did you move the chair to make some room? How did you enter the door to hide from an unpleasant meeting? How did you walk to learn how to march? How did you close the door to protect yourself from robbers? Still, do not just recall but mentally do all the movements one after another. The training of mental actions is a laborious but exciting activity. Its benefits are enormous. It improves image thinking. To move, not moving. The mental actions that we perform in real life emerge organically as a result of our life goals. One must learn to act mentally in stage conditions as intensively as in life, on demand. A classroom with a brightly lit area, gazing off partners and a teacher are also stage conditions that make mental action complicated. We must overcome them. Perform mentally such visions without leaving your chair. Look for something in the room. Look around the room you're renting. Look into some stain. Invent a new design of a car, airplane, etc. Examine items bought. Search, mentally moving around the room, leaning, looking under tables and chairs, pulling back curtains and rearranging objects. Inspect the room, mentally walking around it, turning your head, mentally arranging your things and furniture in it. Look into the stain, mentally approaching it closer, examining it from all sides in order to decide what it looks like, what picture is hidden in the stain. Come up with a construction, mentally drawing it on the drawing board, wielding with a slide rule, pencil, eraser. Examine the purchase, mentally untying it, unfolding it, trying it on, if it is a dress or shoes, or trying it, if it is food, etc. Act having set a goal and specified the circumstances of time and place. Change and make the circumstances of the action more complex.